You didn't ask for the crown, it was assigned to you before you were even born. You didn't have to audition, compete, or convince anyone for the favor on your life. It wasn't based on how loud you were, how many followers you had, or how qualified people thought you were. Your crown is spiritual, supernatural, and sovereignly given by God Himself. From the very beginning, you were marked, set apart for something bigger, something eternal. But here's the twist. You were crowned in secret. Heaven saw it. Hell recognized it. But the people around you, they couldn't comprehend it, and many of them refused to accept it. They looked at your flaws, your past, your background, and convinced themselves that you couldn't possibly be the one. But what they didn't realize is God doesn't crown based on human standards. He doesn't need a committee to confirm what He already ordained. He chooses the overlooked. He elevates the rejected. He empowers the underestimated. And when He places a crown on your head, oh gossip, oh betrayal, oh weapon, and no witchcraft can remove it. That's why the warfare has been so intense. That's why people who barely know you feel the need to compete with you. That's why doors that should have been easy were full of resistance. Because you weren't just walking through life, you were carrying something royal, something eternal, something the enemy feared. And now, you're waking up. You're remembering who you are. You're learning to walk with your head held high, not out of pride, but because you recognize what's been resting on you all along. The authority, the favor, the calling, the crown. So don't let anyone treat your destiny like it's optional. Don't let their opinions shake what heaven already established. The crown was never up for debate. And the moment you fully embrace that truth, everything changes. They never said it out loud, but their silence was loud enough. From the very beginning, your presence disrupted something in them. Not because you were loud or boastful, but because your existence alone carried a frequency they couldn't ignore. You didn't have to try to stand out, you were marked. And that mark didn't just attract favor. It also stirred quiet resentment from those who couldn't understand how or why you kept rising. Here's the truth they'll never say to your face. They were never okay with you being chosen. Deep down, they struggled to reconcile how someone like you, someone who didn't play by their rules, didn't flatter their egos, didn't chase status, could hold a position of spiritual authority, power, and divine elevation. It didn't fit the narrative they had for you. You weren't supposed to go that far. You weren't supposed to be that blessed. You weren't supposed to be seen. But God made sure you were. The silent opposition wasn't always hostile. It often wore a friendly mask. They watched your every move. OT to support but to study. They copied your language, mimicked your essence, tried to move like you, post like you, pray like you, but it never hit the same. Why? Because they were trying to carry a crown that wasn't made for their head. They were performing your anointing instead of discovering their own. And when the imitation failed to produce the results they saw in you, they didn't look inward. They looked at you with disdain. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your obedience exposed their complacency. Your elevation made them uncomfortable with the fact that they had settled. Here's what makes it even deeper. Some of these people were in your circle. Family, friends, church folks, people who should have been your loudest supporters, but instead became your quietest saboteurs. They wouldn't help you, but they didn't want anyone else to either. They wouldn't bless you, but they didn't want you cursed, just contained. But God didn't call you to be contained. He called you to be crowned. Your position is spiritual. It's not a popularity contest or a performance. It's a divine assignment, sealed by the one who doesn't need permission to promote. And the opposition couldn't stop it, no matter how silently or strategically they moved. Let them watch in silence. Let them whisper. Let them wrestle with the fact that you are exactly where you're meant to be. Because what they couldn't accept, God already affirmed. Your crown isn't for debate. It's not up for a vote. It was placed on your life before you were even born. And now, they'll have to watch you wear it. Everyone wants the crown, but few understand the cost that comes with it. See, when people look at your life now, all they see is favor. All they see is grace, influence, peace, elevation, but they have no idea what it took for you to carry it. They want your light, but they couldn't survive your wilderness. They want the reward, but they'd crumble under the requirements. Because the truth is, your crown was forged in fire. You didn't stumble into this calling. You were shaped by it. Every tear you cried, every betrayal you endured, every door that slammed in your face, it was all part of the weight training for the authority you now walk in. God allowed you to be crushed so you could carry His glory. He allowed the pain so you'd never forget the purpose. And He gave you the crown not because you were the loudest, but because you were the most surrendered. That's what they'll never understand. This crown isn't for decoration, it's for warfare. It comes with the responsibility of spiritual discernment, of guarding your peace, of walking away from what others run toward, of remaining faithful when no one claps for you. It means being misunderstood by many, but known deeply by God. It means being the one who breaks generational curses, even when it breaks you first. It means standing alone when the crowd leaves, and trusting God when it doesn't make sense. They couldn't accept your position because they couldn't comprehend your process. They didn't see the nights you cried out in silence, the moments you almost gave up, the times you were ready to hand the crown back because the burden felt too heavy. But you didn't. You kept walking. You kept praying. You kept believing. And that is why God crowned you. Because your strength wasn't in being perfect, it was in being faithful. So let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them assume you got here easily. You don't have to explain your process to people who never saw your pain. What they don't understand is this: you don't wear your crown for them. You wear it for the kingdom. Because at the end of the day, your calling isn't about being celebrated. It's about being chosen. And no matter who doesn't understand it, it still belongs to you. There's something about you that frustrates the enemy, not because you're loud, flashy, or flawless, but because no matter how many traps were set, you keep rising. No matter how many lies were told, you keep rising. No matter how many doors were slammed in your face, relationships that crumbled, or betrayals that cut deep, somehow, you're still here. OT broken, but built. They don't understand it. Honestly, sometimes even you didn't understand it. But what they'll never be able to comprehend is this: you are favored, not by man, but by God, and favor can't be faked, forced, or fabricated. Favor is what kept you when you should have lost your mind. Favor is what elevated you even when others had more money, more influence, more connections. Favor is why you were selected in rooms you weren't even supposed to be in. It's why people with more credentials still couldn't outshine your presence. It's why opportunities found you in your wilderness. God's hand has been on your life in a way no human hand can remove. They tried to bury you, thinking that would end you. But they didn't know you were a seed. They tried to steal your ideas, mimic your voice, imitate your light, but favor can't be duplicated. You can copy someone's steps, but you can't copy the path God carved just for them. What's for you is so divine. It's coded in heaven. Your favor is custom, tailor-made, protected. You see, when God favors someone, He doesn't ask for permission. He doesn't check with your haters, your ex-friends, your critics, or your past. He doesn't consult your resume. He blesses who He chooses, and you, chosen one, are one of them. That's why every time they think they've finally silenced you, God gives you a louder stage. Every time they try to dim your light, He increases your glow. Every time they whisper your name with dishonor, He prepares a table with your name written in honor. God is not just restoring you, He's revealing you. And favor doesn't mean ease, it means endurance. It means when life tried to drown you, heaven threw you a lifeline. It means when others folded under pressure, you became a diamond in it. It means when others compromised, you stayed consecrated. And because of that, you carry what they can't handle, not just the crown, but the character to keep it. They tried to pull you down, but you rose higher. They tried to break you, but it only refined your anointing. They tried to delay you, but divine timing can't be manipulated. So now they sit back confused, offended by your strength, bothered by your elevation, not realizing that it was never you versus them. It was always God's favor versus their efforts. And guess what? Favor wins every time. So keep rising, keep glowing, keep building. Let them talk, let them mock, let them watch. Because divine favor doesn't need applause, it just needs alignment. And you're exactly where God wants you to be. Chosen one, the attacks weren't proof that you were doing something wrong. They were confirmation that you were carrying something right. You've been walking around wondering why certain people turned on you. Why doors slammed without explanation. Why the very ones you loved tried to sabotage your peace, your purpose, and your name. But the truth is, you were never being rejected by man, you were being validated by heaven. Let that sink in. Rejection was never your enemy. It was a divine redirection. An invisible hand was pulling you out of circles that couldn't handle your calling. Out of environments too small for your anointing. Out of relationships that couldn't go where you were being sent. You weren't being abandoned, you were being hidden for a greater reveal. The attacks came because the enemy saw what others didn't. Your crown, your destiny, your light. You were marked before you even knew your own worth. That's why the opposition started early. That's why spiritual warfare found you in classrooms, in friendships, in family systems. You thought it was normal conflict. It wasn't. It was spiritual targeting. And every insult, every betrayal, every misunderstanding was meant to silence you, but instead, it strengthened you. It clarified your identity. It sharpened your discernment. It taught you who's really for you, and who only tolerated you until you outgrew their comfort zone. Here's the truth they don't tell you. Every chosen one will be attacked before they're revealed. You don't get crowned without a cross. You don't get the oil without the crushing. And you don't walk in divine power without first walking through divine fire. The attacks weren't a sign of your weakness, they were proof of your assignment. The enemy doesn't waste his time on the average. He only targets what threatens him. And you, chosen one, you are a threat to darkness. You carry a frequency that hell can't silence. You walk with a presence that exposes every counterfeit around you. You don't even have to speak, your existence causes a shift. So the gossip, confirmation. The sabotage, confirmation. The isolation, confirmation. Every time they plotted, God elevated. Every time they cursed, God covered. Every time they doubted you, God used it as fuel to prepare you. You weren't rejected. You were being crowned in private. So hold your head high. Those attacks didn't break you. They built the version of you that's ready to reign. You're not coming back weaker. You're coming back crowned. Chosen one, there comes a moment in every divine assignment when the hidden becomes revealed. When the underestimated becomes undeniable. And when the one who was mocked is the one now being magnified. That moment is now, and it belongs to you. You weren't passed over, you were protected. You weren't denied, you were being developed. You weren't behind, you were being built. God hid you not to withhold from you, but to preserve the purity of what He placed inside you. He knew that had you risen prematurely, the crown would have crushed you. But now, you don't just wear the crown, you've earned the weight of it. They tried to keep you out of rooms they thought you weren't worthy of. but they didn't know those rooms couldn't contain what you carry. You are not a substitute. You are not a backup plan. You are the rightful ruler, appointed, anointed, and established by divine decree. OT human opinion. Your rise isn't political, it's prophetic. The attacks didn't stop you, they shaped you. The betrayal didn't break you, it blessed you. The rejection didn't ruin you, it realigned you. Every hardship, every tear, every season of confusion was molding you for this moment of release. They thought they buried you, but didn't realize you were a seed. And seeds don't die, they rise. God is putting your name in places where your feet have yet to tread. He's placing your voice in the mouths of people who once ignored you. Doors that were slammed shut are now being opened not by keys, but by favor, and what's for you now carries no sorrow. Oh, striving and no stress. This rise is not born from ego, but from endurance. You're not just rising, you're reclaiming. Reclaiming the identity that was stolen. Reclaiming the confidence that was crushed. Reclaiming the calling that was questioned. And most of all, reclaiming the crown that was always yours. But hear this, your rise isn't just about you. It's about those watching you. Those who've lost hope. Those who've been silenced, counted out, and cast aside. Your elevation is a signal to the weary and the wounded that God still lifts the rejected, still crowns the humble, and still honors the obedient. You were always royalty. They just couldn't see it through the dirt of your process. But now, the same people who discounted you will be forced to watch you ascend, and not just in position, but in power, in peace, and in purpose. Let them talk. Let them watch. Let them wonder, because the rise of the rightful ruler isn't coming. It's here, and it's you. Chosen one, take a deep breath and let this truth settle into your spirit. The crown was never up for debate. It was never a matter of if, but when. And now, the wait is over. Everything you went through, every tear you cried, every room where you were overlooked, it all served a purpose. They didn't see your worth because God cloaked it in mystery. Oh, to confuse you, but to protect what was sacred. The crown didn't miss you. It was simply being shaped to fit the version of you that had endured the crushing, the pruning, the refining fire. And now it fits perfectly. They couldn't stop what was ordained. They tried to copy your walk, but they couldn't survive your wilderness. They tried to imitate your favor, but they didn't carry your assignment. They tried to bury your influence, but they didn't know you were born to resurrect greatness. This isn't your revenge, this is your release. You don't need to explain your rise. You don't owe anyone a reason for your glow. When God crowns someone, He doesn't consult the opinions of those who tried to crucify them. He just elevates, and suddenly, everything changes. Your authority, legitimate. Your identity, unshakable. Your crown, irrevocable. Walk with your head high, not in arrogance, but in alignment. The world is just now seeing what God always knew. You were chosen, called, and crowned from the beginning. This is your season, your throne, your time. Let them watch. Let them whisper. Because one thing is certain, the crown was always yours. If this word confirms something deep in your spirit, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more messages that remind you who you are. You're not just here to exist, you're here to reign. Have you ever sat in a classroom, staring at the clock, wondering why school felt like a prison? Have you ever questioned why the subjects seemed irrelevant? Why the structure felt suffocating? And why no matter how hard you tried, something just didn't sit right with your spirit? You weren't alone. And more importantly, it wasn't your fault. The world has programmed people to believe that struggling in school is a sign of failure. That if you didn't fit in, if you didn't conform, if you didn't perform the way they expected, you were the problem. But what if the truth is the exact opposite? What if your struggles were never a sign of weakness, but a sign that you were never meant to fit into their mold? You are different. You have always been different. The system was never built for people like you. It was designed to shape obedient followers. OT free thinkers, visionaries, and leaders. It was designed to create workers, OT warriors. From an early age, you sensed something was wrong. You questioned what others blindly accepted. You resisted being controlled. You were misunderstood, labeled as a troublemaker, a daydreamer, or someone who just wasn't applying themselves. But the truth is, your mind wasn't meant to be programmed. Your spirit wasn't meant to be tamed. You are one of God's chosen ones, and they never wanted you to realize it. School was never about education for you. It was about indoctrination. It was about silencing the chosen, making you doubt yourself, making you believe that your struggles meant you weren't good enough. But today, that illusion shatters. Today, you realize that your struggles were actually proof of your divine calling. Every challenge, every moment of feeling out of place, every time you doubted yourself, it was all part of a much bigger plan. They tried to break you, but your struggles were not a curse. They were a test, a refining fire, a spiritual battle preparing you for something greater. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out. You were never meant to follow. You were meant to lead. And now, it's time to uncover the 8 shocking reasons why school was so difficult for you, and why everything you faced was actually preparing you for the incredible destiny ahead. Reason number 1, you are not meant to follow the crowd. From the very beginning, you felt different. You sensed that something about the way the world operated didn't sit right with you. While other kids followed the rules without question, you questioned everything, while they were content memorizing facts and repeating what they were told. You wanted to understand the deeper meaning behind it all. You weren't trying to be difficult, you were simply wired differently. You were never meant to follow the crowd because you were born to lead. School is designed to create uniformity. It teaches students to think alike, to obey without questioning, to accept whatever is placed in front of them. It rewards those who comply and punishes those who resist. But chosen ones don't conform. Your spirit is too powerful to be caged. You were given a mind that seeks truth. OT blind obedience. This is why you struggled. The system wanted you to fit into their mold, but you were never meant to. You felt trapped because the structure was never designed for thinkers, creators, visionaries, and spiritual warriors. It was designed to shape followers. OT leaders. Maybe you were labeled a rebel. Maybe teachers called you distracted or difficult. Maybe you were criticized for questioning authority, for not just going along with the program. But what they called a weakness was actually one of your greatest strengths. You saw through the illusion. You refused to be programmed. You weren't built for the ordinary, you were built for something far greater. The world doesn't want chosen ones to awaken, because once you realize your power, you can no longer be controlled. That's why they tried so hard to break you early, to make you doubt yourself, to convince you that something was wrong with you. But deep down, you always knew you were different. And here's the truth, they don't want you to know your resistance was proof of your calling. Your struggle was never because you weren't good enough. It was because you were too powerful to be controlled. You didn't fit into their system because you were designed to create a new one. Now, the question is, will you embrace who you were always meant to be? Or will you keep trying to fit into a world that was never meant for you? Reason number 2, you learn differently because you think differently. From the moment you stepped into a classroom, you could tell something was off. The way they taught, the way they expected you to absorb information, it just didn't work for you. While others seemed to memorize and regurgitate facts with ease, you struggled, not because you weren't smart, but because your mind operates on a completely different level. You are not wired to simply take in information. You are designed to seek deeper truth. The school system was built for those who can sit, listen, memorize, and repeat, but for chosen ones, that kind of learning feels unnatural. Your mind is constantly searching for meaning, for connection, for the why behind everything. You don't just accept information, you analyze it, break it apart, and question whether it even makes sense. They told you that you were distracted, that you daydreamed too much, that you couldn't focus. But the truth is, you were never meant to focus on things that don't align with your higher purpose. Your mind naturally rejects things that have no deeper value. You were drawn to creativity, imagination, spirituality, and hidden wisdom, not just memorizing facts that had no real impact on your destiny. This is why traditional learning methods didn't work for you. Your brain is built to connect with higher knowledge, with spiritual wisdom, with divine truth, but the school system was never designed to nurture that. It was designed to suppress it. They wanted you to fit into their structured way of thinking. But your mind was created to operate beyond that structure. Maybe you excelled in certain subjects but struggled in others. Maybe you felt like you were slow to understand things. But in reality, you were just processing information differently. The way they taught wasn't in alignment with how you receive knowledge. But here's the truth: they never wanted you to realize how powerful your mind truly is. Because once you step into your divine intelligence, you become unstoppable. You have access to wisdom that goes beyond textbooks, beyond lectures, beyond the limitations of the system. The world doesn't need more people who simply follow instructions. It needs those who think differently, who see beyond the surface, who tap into a level of wisdom that can shift reality. And that is exactly why you were made the way you are. So stop doubting yourself. Stop believing the lie that you weren't smart enough. Your struggles in school weren't a sign of failure, they were proof that you were never meant to learn the way they wanted you to. You are here to learn in a way that transforms the world. Your mind is divine. Embrace it. Reason number 3, your spirit rejected lies and indoctrination. From a young age, you sensed something was wrong. While other students seemed to accept everything they were taught without question, you always had this deep, unshakable feeling that something wasn't right. The world they were presenting to you, the rules, the history, the so-called truths, felt incomplete, manipulated, and even deceptive. They told you that you had to follow a system, memorize facts, and never question authority. But your spirit was built differently. You were not designed to blindly accept everything you were told. You were given divine discernment, an ability to sense when something is false, when something is being hidden, when something is being used to control instead of enlighten. Your soul recognized the lies before your mind even understood them. This is why school felt suffocating. The history they taught you was rewritten. The narratives they pushed were carefully crafted. The truths they wanted you to memorize weren't really truths at all. And deep down, your soul rejected the indoctrination. You may not have had the words to explain it at the time, but you could feel it. Maybe you found yourself questioning the things teachers told you. Maybe you felt disconnected from what was being taught, unable to fully engage because it didn't resonate with you. Or maybe you even got in trouble for asking too many questions, for challenging what was normal, for refusing to just accept things the way they were. The world calls this defiance, but in reality, it was your spiritual protection. They wanted you to conform, but you were born to awaken. Most people go through life never questioning the system. They follow the rules, believe what they are told, and never stop to ask, who benefits from this? Why are we being taught this? What aren't they telling us? But you have always seen through the illusion. That is why you struggled. That is why you never fully fit in. And that is also why you are dangerous to them. A chosen one who sees through deception is a threat to those who profit from keeping people asleep. They want minds that are easy to control, easy to manipulate, easy to keep trapped in fear and limitation. But your spirit refused to be enslaved. This is why the world tried so hard to make you doubt yourself. They labeled you as difficult, rebellious, too curious, a troublemaker. But in reality, you were simply awakening. And now, as you step into the fullness of your purpose, you begin to see the bigger picture. You were never meant to fit into a broken system. You were meant to break free from it and help others do the same. The world doesn't need more obedient followers. It needs leaders, truth seekers, and those bold enough to challenge the lies. That is why your spirit rejected the deception from the very beginning. You were chosen for something greater. And now, it's time to walk in that truth. Reason number 4, you were spiritually attacked from a young age. From the moment you were born, there was something different about you. Even before you fully understood who you were, the enemy did. The forces of darkness could sense your divine calling, your anointing, your potential, and they worked tirelessly to stop you before you could rise into your power. That's why your childhood wasn't easy. That's why school felt like a battlefield rather than a place of learning. While other kids seemed to move through life with ease, you faced obstacles, struggles, and opposition that most people never had to deal with. But why? Because the enemy attacks what he fears. You were marked for greatness from the beginning. And that put a target on your back. Maybe you dealt with bullying, isolation, rejection. Maybe teachers misunderstood you, labeled you as difficult, lazy, or unfocused. Maybe no matter how hard you tried, it always felt like something was trying to pull you down. This wasn't by accident. It was a coordinated effort spiritually and physically to break you before you could fully step into your power. The enemy didn't wait until you were grown to start attacking you. He tried to crush you as a child. Some of you were surrounded by negativity, growing up in environments that tried to strip you of your confidence, your joy, and your self-worth. Others of you dealt with emotional, mental, or even physical battles that made you feel like you were constantly struggling just to stay afloat. But what the enemy didn't realize was that everything he used to try and destroy you only made you stronger. Every rejection, every tear, every hardship was shaping you into the warrior you were always meant to be. You didn't break, you transformed. That's why the enemy fought so hard to keep you down. He knew that if you ever discovered who you truly were, you would be unstoppable. And now here you are. You've made it through everything that was meant to destroy you. You are awakening to the truth of who you are. The attacks didn't stop you, they built you. The enemy's plan failed, and now it's your time to rise. You were more connected to spiritual truth than earthly systems. From a young age, you saw the world differently. While other kids seemed perfectly content to accept what they were taught without question, something inside of you resisted. You felt that there was more to life than memorizing facts, following rules, and fitting into a system designed to shape everyone the same way. This wasn't because you were rebellious or difficult. It was because your soul recognized a deeper truth. You weren't just here to learn how to survive in the world's system, you were meant to transcend it. You sensed the disconnect between earthly teachings and spiritual truth. While the world told you to obey, conform, and not ask questions, your spirit urged you to seek, to challenge, to look beyond the surface. That's why traditional schooling felt unnatural to you. It wasn't because you lacked intelligence, it was because your intelligence worked on a different frequency. Think back to those moments when a teacher would tell you something that just didn't sit right with you. Maybe it was a historical narrative that felt incomplete. Maybe it was the way certain rules seemed to suppress creativity rather than encourage it. Or maybe it was the way you were told to just accept things as they are instead of questioning. why they were that way in the first place. Your spirit resisted because it was designed for higher knowledge, while most people were content following the path laid out for them. You felt drawn to something greater. That's why you daydreamed more than others. That's why certain subjects bored you while others ignited a fire inside of you. That's why you may have struggled with authority figures who demanded blind obedience rather than true understanding. You weren't made to be just another piece of the machine. You were made to break free from it. The school system wasn't built for people like you. It was built to train workers, to awaken leaders. It was designed to create followers, to empower visionaries, but you were always meant to lead. You were more spiritually in tune than those around you. And that made you stand out. It made you question things most people never even thought about. It made you crave meaning in a world that often felt hollow. And that's why you struggled. Not because you were less capable, but because you were wired for something greater. While others were content being taught what to think, you were always more interested in how to think. And that is what sets you apart. Now, as you look back, you can see that every struggle, every moment of frustration, every time you felt like an outsider, it was all preparing you. The very things that made school difficult for you are the same things that make you powerful today. You weren't meant to thrive in their system because you were born to build a new one. The education system was never meant for chosen ones. The truth is, the education system was never designed for people like you. It wasn't built to nurture visionaries, free thinkers, or spiritual leaders. It was created to produce obedient workers, people who would fit into a system rather than question it. And because you are different, because you were chosen, you never truly fit in. From the moment you entered a classroom, something fell off. Maybe you struggled with the rigid structure. Maybe you found it hard to focus on subjects that seemed meaningless. Maybe you questioned why you had to memorize information you knew you would never use. It wasn't that you weren't intelligent. It was that the system wasn't designed for your kind of intelligence. The world has always had two types of people: those who follow and those who lead. Those who accept what they're told and those who seek deeper truth. Those who conform to the system and those who are called to rise above it. You were never meant to follow. You were meant to lead. That's why school felt like a cage. That's why you resisted the structure, the rules, and the expectations. Your soul knew that you were meant for something greater. And deep down, the system knew it too. That's why they tried so hard to keep you in line. Think about it. Why does the education system punish creativity? Why does it discourage questioning authority? Why does it reward obedience over independent thought? It's because they fear what people like you can become. If you had been truly free to explore your mind, your gifts, your spiritual connection, you would have discovered your true power much earlier. But instead, they tried to mold you into something you were never meant to be. They called you distracted when you were simply bored. They called you rebellious when you were simply questioning things that didn't make sense. They called you difficult when you refused to blindly follow. But the truth is, you were never the problem, the system was. You struggled because you were never meant to fit into their box. You were meant to break out of it. And now, as you look back, you can see the bigger picture. The struggles, the frustrations, the feeling of being different, it all makes sense now. You weren't meant to succeed in their world because you were destined to create a new one. The system tried to make you believe you were a failure. But in reality, you were always the one with the power. You were given a higher calling. You didn't struggle in school because you weren't smart enough. You struggled because your mind and spirit were attuned to something far greater than textbooks, tests, and rigid structures. You were called for something higher. From a young age, you sensed that you were different. Maybe you couldn't put it into words, but you felt it deep in your soul, while others seemed content to follow the rules without question. You were always searching for something more, something real, something with meaning. That wasn't a mistake. That was destiny pulling you toward your true path. Think about it. Why do so many great leaders, visionaries, and spiritual pioneers struggle in traditional education? Because they weren't meant to be confined by it. Their purpose was too great, their calling too high, their vision too powerful. And the same is true for you. You weren't meant to be just another person following the system's blueprint. You were meant to break free from it. You were meant to rise above it. You were meant to step into your divine assignment, the one that God placed inside of you, long before you even knew it was there. That's why you felt disconnected in school. That's why the lessons felt meaningless. That's why no matter how hard you tried to fit in, something inside of you resisted. Because deep down, you knew you were meant for more. The struggles you faced were not failures. They were signs that you were chosen for a different path. A path that doesn't require you to conform, but instead calls you to step into your true purpose. And now, you stand at a crossroads. You can either believe the lie that school taught you, that you weren't good enough, that you weren't smart enough, that you somehow failed, or you can embrace the truth that you were never meant to fit into the system, because you were designed to create something greater. This is why so many chosen ones experience the same struggle, because God sets apart His people for a higher calling. The world may not have understood you, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that your Creator knew exactly what He was doing when He made you different. And now, it's time for you to embrace that difference. It's time to walk in your calling with confidence, knowing that the struggles of your past were never setbacks, they were preparation. You weren't meant to fit in. You were meant to lead. The struggles were preparing you for your purpose. Every difficulty you faced in school, the confusion, the frustration, the feeling of being out of place was not meant to break you. It was meant to shape you. It was meant to strengthen you. It was meant to prepare you for something greater than the system could ever offer. Think about it. If life had been easy, if everything had made sense, if you had fit in effortlessly, you would have never questioned anything. You would have never sought deeper truth. You would have never awakened to your divine purpose. But you were never meant to be like everyone else. The struggles you endured were your training ground. The isolation you felt was meant to draw you closer to your true identity. The frustration you experienced was meant to push you toward discovering your own path, instead of following the one laid out by the world. God allowed you to walk through the fire, but not to destroy you. He was refining you, while others were blindly accepting what they were taught. You were learning to think for yourself. While they were memorizing facts, you were developing wisdom. While they were seeking validation from the world, you were being prepared to rise above it. Many chosen ones face rejection early in life because they are being prepared to stand alone. If necessary, you weren't meant to follow the crowd. You were meant to lead. You were meant to bring truth. You were meant to step into a higher calling that this world cannot define. Your struggles were never a punishment. They were a setup for your elevation. And now, the question is, what will you do with everything you've been through? Will you allow the pain to make you bitter? Or will you allow it to make you stronger? Will you hold on to the false belief that you weren't enough? Or will you embrace the truth that you were always meant to be different? Because your purpose is different. Everything you went through was for a reason. Every tear, every doubt, every moment of feeling lost, it was all part of God's plan to mold you into the person you were destined to become. Now, it's time to step fully into that purpose. It's time to own your identity as a chosen one. It's time to walk in the power that has been inside you all along. Your struggles weren't setbacks. They were preparation for the greatness that is ahead. If there's one thing you need to take away from everything we've uncovered, it's this: you were never meant to fit in because you were born to stand out. Every struggle you faced in school, every moment of frustration, every time you felt like you didn't belong, it was all part of the greater plan. Society tries to force everyone into the same mold, but you were created differently. The world wanted you to conform, but your soul was always resisting because deep down, you knew that your path was never meant to be ordinary. You weren't supposed to accept the same version of reality that was handed to everyone else. You weren't supposed to follow blindly. You weren't supposed to settle for less than the truth. And that's why it was so hard. That's why you felt like an outsider. That's why you questioned things that others never even thought twice about. Because you are chosen. You have a higher calling. You were always meant for more than what the system could offer you. Everything you went through was a lesson, a preparation, a refining process. The struggles weren't there to break you. They were there to make you stronger, wiser, more resilient. They were there to awaken you to your true identity. Now that you know this, you have a choice. You can continue to dwell on the past, feeling like you were a misfit, or you can own your power and recognize that those struggles were a gift. They shaped you. They guided you. They led you to the truth. So now, stand tall, embrace who you are, walk in your purpose. The world may not have understood you, but that's because you were never meant to be understood by the world. You were meant to change it. You are chosen. You are powerful. And now, it's time to step fully into the life you were always destined to live. Let me speak to the soul in you that's been wounded in silence. Let me speak to the heart that's been overlooked, misunderstood, and underestimated. You've been through more than most people even know. The tears you cried weren't just from pain, they were prayers. They were spiritual warfare. They were offerings. Because you, chosen one, have always carried something sacred inside you. Something the world tried to silence before it ever had the chance to fully bloom. They tried to break you, not because you were weak, but because they saw your strength, because they sensed your light. Even before you realized how brightly you could shine, you confused them. You didn't fit their mold. You didn't bend to their control. So they did what people do when they don't understand the anointing. You became a target. They mocked your journey, ridiculed your dreams, and tried to bury your identity under lies, manipulation, and betrayal. But what they didn't see was the hand of God on your life. What they never counted on was the divine protection surrounding your purpose. They thought the fire would consume you, but God used it to refine you. They thought isolation would break you, but it deepened your connection with Him. They thought rejection would crush you, but it redirected you into His perfect will. What they meant for evil, God has already started turning for your good, and not just for your good, for your glory. The kind of glory that doesn't come from man but from the throne of heaven. People see the surface, but God saw the seed, and while they were busy trying to dig your grave, God was digging your roots deeper into purpose. You survived storms that should have taken you out. You endured warfare that would have broken anyone else, but you're still here. You didn't fold. You didn't turn back. You may have crawled, cried, and questioned, but you never quit. And because of that, heaven is about to reward you publicly for what you endured privately. Listen closely. This is not the end of your story. This is the part where everything shifts, where the tables turn, where the stone that the builders rejected becomes the cornerstone. What they tried to destroy, God preserved, and not just preserved, but prepared for impact, for influence, for divine elevation. You were chosen for this, handpicked for this, forged in fire and filled with purpose. So don't you dare shrink back now. Don't you dare question your worth. You didn't survive all of that to live a small life. You didn't walk through all of that pain just to settle for less than the promise. God is about to flip the script. The same ones who dismissed you will watch you be crowned. The same ones who mocked you will witness your miracle. Because this next season of your life is proof that no weapon formed against you could prosper. This is your confirmation. This is your reminder. This is your divine wake-up call. Comment "I receive this" if you feel this in your spirit. Because this message isn't for the crowd, it's for the remnant. For the one who knows in their bones, I was never meant to break. I was meant to rise. Let's be clear about something. The attacks on your life were never random. The pain, the betrayal, the rejection, the confusion, it didn't just happen. It was strategic. It was spiritual. The enemy saw your calling long before you understood it. Hell recognized your name before heaven ever revealed your assignment to you. That's why you couldn't have a normal life. That's why you were attacked in childhood, targeted in your relationships, and surrounded by people who tried to clip your wings before you even learned how to fly. You were marked, not for destruction, but for destiny, and that mark made you a threat to every force of darkness that ever tried to control your bloodline. You ever wonder why your struggles felt so personal? Why the warfare came so early and so heavy? It's because the enemy didn't want you to wake up. He didn't want you to discover the power within you. He wanted you to believe you were broken, that you were unworthy, that you were forgotten. Because if he could plant those lies deep enough, you might never rise into who you were born to become. But what he didn't count on was your resilience. You were built differently, molded in fire, covered in grace, even when you didn't know how to pray. Heaven was interceding for you, even when you didn't know who you were. God was still orchestrating every step. The attacks weren't a sign that you were cursed, they were confirmation that you are chosen. You've always had a light that made dark spirits tremble. And that's why people were drawn to you but couldn't handle you. That's why you were betrayed by the ones you loved the most. That's why people copied you, yet rejected you, because your authenticity exposed their pretending. Your presence disrupted their comfort zones. Your calling challenged every lie they built their identity on. But let this truth settle into your spirit. If the attack was this intense, the anointing must be even greater. The more you were attacked, the more heaven was preparing you. The deeper the pain, the higher the purpose, the greater the pressure, the more valuable the vessel. So don't look at the attacks as setbacks. See them as setups, divine training grounds. Every tear watered your future. Every scar is a testimony, and every battle you survived is proof that there's something in you hell couldn't kill. They tried to silence you, but now your voice will be heard. They tried to bury you, but didn't know you were a seed. They tried to curse you, but God already blessed you. And now, it's your time. You're not just surviving, you're about to thrive. Not by your strength, but by His Spirit. The enemy tried to write your ending, but heaven's not done with your story. Keep walking, keep rising. The attack was real, but so is your victory. You remember that moment when you almost gave up? When the pressure was so heavy it felt like it would crush you. When the betrayal cut so deep you wondered if you'd ever trust again. When the nights were filled with tears, and the days were filled with silence. That wasn't just a breaking point. That was the turning point. Because right when it looked like it was over, God stepped in. And when He steps in, everything changes. You didn't see it at first. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. God doesn't always part the sea with thunder. Sometimes He just begins to shift the atmosphere quietly. He moves in silence but leaves evidence. Things you didn't even pray for started aligning. The people who left you were replaced with divine connections. The doors that closed in your face redirected you to ones you were born to walk through. There was a shift, and you could feel it in your spirit before you saw it with your eyes. God began to show you why the heartbreak happened, why the storm had to hit, why the foundation had to be shaken. Because He was clearing the room for His glory. He was separating the fake from the faithful. He was purging the distractions and preparing you for the promise. And while the enemy thought you were buried, heaven knew you were being planted. That's when your discernment began to increase. That's when your dreams started speaking louder. That's when peace became your weapon and worship became your warfare. You weren't crazy, you were awakening. God stepped in and reminded you who you are. Not broken, not lost, not forgotten, but chosen, covered, called, anointed, equipped. Isaiah 43:2 says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you go through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned." That was not just a promise for ancient times. That was your story. You've walked through fire and came out without the smell of smoke. Why? Because God was in the fire with you. He stepped into your situation and flipped it in your favor. He took what the enemy meant for evil and is turning it for good. He's using your pain to push you into purpose. The shift has already begun. You're not who you used to be. You've outgrown the old patterns, the old people, the old fears. You are walking in a new level of power, clarity, and authority, and this is just the beginning. Because when God steps in, He never leaves you the same. There comes a moment in every chosen one's life when the dust settles. The storm passes, and you realize you didn't just survive, you've been transformed. Everything they did to break you, to silence you, to strip you of your confidence and identity, is now being used as fuel for your elevation. You are not who you were before the pain. And that's the point. They saw your downfall as the end, but God saw it as the beginning. They saw weakness, but God saw surrender. They saw brokenness, but God saw the perfect opportunity to rebuild you stronger, deeper, and more connected to Him than ever before. What they meant for evil, God turned for good. That isn't just a verse. That's your story. That's your testimony. And it's unfolding right now, whether you feel it or not. Because God wastes nothing. Not one tear, one sleepless night, one betrayal. Every piece of your suffering is being recycled into purpose. Every attack was secretly building spiritual muscles you didn't even know you had. And now that foundation, it's becoming unshakable. You've been tried by fire, and fire never destroys gold. It purifies it. You've been through the wilderness, but wilderness doesn't mean punishment. It means preparation. Jesus was led into the wilderness before His ministry began. Joseph was betrayed and thrown into a pit before he was promoted to the palace. David was hiding in caves before he ever wore a crown. So why would it be any different for you? The delay wasn't denial, it was development. The rejection wasn't failure, it was redirection. And the heartbreak? It was heaven's way of removing attachments that couldn't go where you're headed. This is why you didn't fit in. Why doors shut. Why people turned cold. Because God was separating you, sanctifying you, setting you apart. You were being positioned for a level of glory that only comes through suffering. You were being carved into a vessel that could carry the weight of divine authority, not just for yourself, but for others too. Because the glory on your life isn't just about you. It's about who's watching you. It's about those who will see how far God brought you. It's about those who said you wouldn't make it and now have to witness God's favor falling all over your life. It's about those who are secretly drawing hope from your story. This is why the enemy fought you so hard. Because you are the evidence that God still heals, the evidence that God restores, the evidence that no plan of the enemy can cancel the promise God placed on your life. They thought they were silencing you, but heaven was just turning up the volume. They thought they were burying you, but they didn't know you were a seed. And now, God is raising you up in plain sight. He's preparing a table right in front of your enemies, and they will have no choice but to watch you eat. Watch you rise, watch you glow, watch you thrive in the very area they tried to destroy you in. This is your glory season, not because everything is easy, but because now you walk in divine confidence. Now you speak with spiritual authority. Now you pray with unshakable faith. The old version of you was powerful, but this version, refined by fire, tested through pain, and covered in glory, unstoppable. This is your reward for not giving up, for praising through the pain, for worshiping when you had nothing left, for trusting when everything around you was shaking. And now, heaven is responding. Doors are opening, chains are breaking, favor is flowing, and your name is being spoken in rooms you've never even entered. This is what it looks like when God turns the pain into power. This is what it means when He uses all things for your good. This is glory, and this is only the beginning. Chosen one, hear this loud and clear. There's a move of God happening right now, not in the distant future. Oh, next year. Oh, when everything is perfect, right now. And the greatest tragedy would be to survive all you've survived. Carry all you've carried, and then miss the moment you were born for. This isn't the time to fall back into fear. This isn't the time to slip into comfort, complacency, or distraction. The enemy's last resort is distraction. If he can't destroy you, he'll delay you. If he can't take your purpose, he'll try to blind you to it. He'll try to lure you back into old habits, old relationships, old mindsets, because he knows what's coming next if you stay aligned with God. You've already come too far to turn back now. You've cried too many tears to go back to what broke you. You've grown too much in silence to shrink yourself for people who never saw your value in the first place. This is your moment of decision. Because God is moving, He's shifting, He's elevating, but He won't force you to go higher. He'll only invite you. Don't miss the invitation. Some people think they have more time, but the truth is, there's an open window in the Spirit right now. A divine opening, a door that God has unlocked specifically for you, but it won't stay open forever. And if you don't walk through it, someone else will. This is the season where obedience matters more than comfort, where discernment matters more than opinions, where surrender matters more than strategy. You don't need another sign. You don't need more confirmation. God has already shown you what to do, who you are, and what you carry. The only question is, will you step into it? Because delaying obedience is still disobedience, and disobedience in this season can cost you your promise. The move of God is bigger than a feeling. It's bigger than a vibe. It's a divine alignment that changes the trajectory of everything connected to you. And when God starts moving in your life, you have two choices: move with Him or miss it. Don't miss it. Don't let fear win. Don't let comparison steal your momentum. Don't let doubt shut down your voice. Don't let the enemy convince you that you're not ready. OT worthy, OT called, because if you weren't a threat, you wouldn't be under attack. This is the final stretch, the final test, the final push. God is asking, will you trust me now? Will you obey me now? Will you step out when nothing makes sense and just believe that I'm still with you, chosen one? This is not the time to fall asleep. This is the time to rise. Chosen one, now is the time, not tomorrow, not when things feel easier. Right now, in the middle of the uncertainty, in the middle of the pressure, in the middle of everything trying to distract you, this is where your divine comeback begins. This isn't just about recovery. It's about resurrection. Everything the enemy tried to kill in you, your faith, your voice, your purpose, your passion, God is breathing life into it again. You thought it was over, but heaven says it's just beginning. You were not buried. You were planted. And now it's time to rise. But this comeback doesn't happen by accident. It happens by decision. You must choose to believe what God said about you over what the world tried to label you. You must choose to walk in purpose even when the path is unfamiliar. You must choose to speak even when fear tells you to stay quiet. Your comeback is not about proving anything to people. It's about aligning with God's original blueprint for your life. It's about stepping into the version of you that's always been hidden beneath the pain, the trauma, and the lies. This is the moment where you stop shrinking to fiddled rooms, where you stop apologizing for your light, where you stop delaying the assignment God put on your life just to make others comfortable. You were born for this, and the same God who kept you through the tears, the betrayal, the warfare, the silence, He is now lifting you up in front of those who thought you were finished. But it takes movement. Faith without action is dead, and glory without obedience is delayed. You've got to step forward, even if you're afraid, even if you feel unqualified, even if it doesn't make sense yet. Because your next breakthrough isn't waiting for perfect conditions, it's waiting for your obedience. This is your comeback season, so get back to the mission, get back in alignment, speak like you've already won, walk like you know who you are, pray like heaven is backing every word, because it is. You're not who they said you were. You're not broken. You're being rebuilt. And every scar is a prophecy of victory. Let the world see what God does with someone who refuses to quit. Let your life be the proof that what tried to destroy you only built your throne. Your comeback is already written. Now walk in it. Chosen one, you've come a long way. Every battle, every hardship, every trial, God used it all for your glory. What they meant for evil, God has turned it into fuel for your fire. Every moment of rejection, every word that tried to break you, every attack that came against your mind, body, and spirit, God allowed it to refine you, to strengthen you, and to prepare you for this moment. You are not who you once were. You are not the same person who struggled to understand why things happened the way they did. No, you are a warrior who has emerged from the fire as pure gold. You are a testimony to the power of God's grace, mercy, and favor. What others saw as your downfall, God saw as your elevation. The world tried to make you small, to make you doubt your purpose. But God was always right there, in the middle of the storm, saying, I'm making you stronger. I'm molding you for something greater, and now, you stand at the threshold of something extraordinary. You're not just surviving, you are thriving. You are walking into your destiny. A destiny that was written long before you even knew who you were. The glory that's coming to your life, the doors opening, the favor pouring in, the anointing increasing, it was all part of the plan. The pain was never permanent. It was just preparation for the purpose that's now unfolding before you. As you step into this new chapter, remember, God has already secured your victory. You're walking in power, walking in promise, walking in the anointing that the enemy could never take away from you. You are marked by God, and everything He has planned for you will come to pass. Nothing can stop it. So, don't look back at the storms. Don't look back at the moments when you thought you couldn't make it. Look ahead at the throne He's calling you to. Look ahead at the people you're called to inspire, to lead, and to serve. You are the chosen one, and God is getting ready to show the world just how glorious His work is in you. This is your season of restoration, your season of elevation, your season of manifestation. Now walk boldly in your calling. You are a reflection of God's glory, and His glory is unstoppable. Everything they did to try and break you only made you stronger. And now, you stand as living proof that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. You are God's chosen one, and nothing can stop you. Chosen one, I want you to hear this. The victory is already yours. You've walked through the storm, and you've come out victorious. The battle was never yours to fight alone. God has been with you every step of the way, and now He's leading you into a new season of divine favor, purpose, and glory. You may have faced moments of doubt, struggle, and even heartache, But know that each moment was a setup for your comeback. What they intended for your harm, God has already turned it for your good. The struggles you've endured have been the very things that shaped you into the mighty warrior you are today. You are more than a conqueror. You are an overcomer. And this is just the beginning. Now it's time to walk in your purpose, to claim your inheritance, and to step boldly into the destiny that has been ordained for you. Every setback was just a divine setup for the incredible things that are ahead. Your future is bright, and God's favor is upon you in ways that will leave others amazed. As you move forward, remember this truth: you are unstoppable. No force, person, obstacle can stand against the power and purpose that God has placed inside of you. So don't shrink back. Don't hold yourself back from stepping into the fullness of what God has for you. The time is now. You are a living testimony of God's grace, strength, and faithfulness, and the world is about to witness His glory shining through your life in ways you could never have imagined. The best is yet to come, and you are walking into it right now.